All right, people. I was just making sure my microphone's turned on. What are we saying? Is everybody good? So, I'm making this video. This is probably going to be the first video I drop after 2 years. I've made a few videos, but I never put them up. I made a few videos about AI art and stuff like that, and about like how I'm going to integrate it into my workflow because you can't beat it. There's no beating it. It's here now. And I think we need to kind of accept AI art. But this video ain't about AI art. That's the only mention of AI art, there's gonna probably be in this video. This video is about the biggest Procreate mistake that I ever made. And funnily enough, the mistake itself isn't really a mistake in terms of drawing and painting. It's a mistake in terms of like using the app, using the iPad itself, and like what I should have done instead of what I ended up doing, and how it kind of came back to bite me, man. So straight up, the biggest mistake I ever made in Procreate was getting a small iPad size, right? So as I said, not really a Procreate thing. And while I talk, I'm gonna do this line out for this Superman piece. But yeah, not really a Procreate issue, but obviously it relates to Procreate in the end. But yeah, I got my first iPad Pro. This is my second one. The one I'm using now is my second one. My first iPad Pro was a 64 gig. And I bought it, and I was gonna get the size up, which would have been fantastic, but I didn't. This one is I think it's a 250 or a 512. I think it might be a 250. I don't need that much storage for Procreate. Now, in hindsight, with Procreate Dreams and stuff coming out, I probably should have got the bigger size, but I'll do that next year. I'll get another one. But I got the 64 gigabyte for my first iPad Pro. And, it worked fantastic for a while. I can't pretend it didn't work great. Everything was good. But obviously you start to run out of storage, don't you? And when it got to that point of me like running out of storage, initially, before I kind of like did certain things, I'm going to go into what I end up doing that kind of messed me up. But initially, it would just kind of like say, oh, I can't really open files. Like certain files would just crash it, and it would just not open stuff, and it kind of just played up. For years it was like that. It was like that for about 2 years, maybe 3. When I got the second iPad, I kind of started to use this one more as my primary iPad, so that older one could have a break. But I always liked to kind of carry two with me at all times, just to have both galleries of artwork, and just sometimes I didn't integrate all my brushes over to this new one, so I had like a few different brushes here and there on the old one, just to have a slightly different like appearance, right? And I mean, not appearance, a different feel, a different experience when using Procreate. Anyway, so I end up filling it, as I said, and had these weird issues for years. But then recently, I've kind of got another iPad, I've got an iPhone, and I've got iCloud. And I'm just, now because I have an iPhone, because before I was always Android with phones, now because I've got an iPhone, I'm taking more pictures than ever, I'm taking more videos than ever. And I'm not sure if this is exactly what happened, but I believe what ended up happening was the iCloud storage ended up uploading some files to my iPad, possibly, and that ended up telling Procreate to uninstall itself because there wasn't enough space for it. And now I have 50 something gigabytes of Procreate files trapped in like iPad limbo because I can't reinstall Procreate on that old iPad. And I don't think I clicked the option to have my stuff backed up to iCloud, but I don't think Procreate was actually backing my files up to iCloud. So I think my files are just trapped on that iPad, and there's not really a way to get them back, unless some magical Apple person manages to help me. I don't think there's a way to get the files back. The issue with that is it's simply that I need those files to a degree. I want the files. They were personal files. They were kind of individual pieces of artwork that kind of existed in in a vacuum, and I don't have any copies of them. Some of them I got lucky. I took screenshots of because there were so many. I was getting to a point where I wanted to clear the thing so I could use it freely again, and there were so many files. I was just screenshotting, whole folders of files so I could kind of use the iPad again, or so I could just have an idea of what was on that one. Because as I said, I did kind of move on to the new one. But yeah, so that's pretty short story, but that's literally it. But it's a cautionary tale. I just want people to understand, like, do not overfill your iPad if it's not a big storage, especially with Procreate. With other apps like Clip Studio, Paint and stuff, they store their files on the actual iPad, whereas Procreate stores the files on the app. And the app, is on the iPad, but it can only be accessed through the app. So if there's a way, if anyone out there can help me, if there's a way to fish my Procreate files off Procreate on my old iPad and get them kind of like on the storage of the iPad, so I can kind of like just airdrop them to myself or something on my new machine, please tell me. But as of right now, YouTube doesn't seem to be of any help, and I just don't know what I'm gonna do. But I am prepared. I've emotionally kind of let go of the files. It's been a while now, to be honest. But I just want to put this message out so other artists don't make the same mistake and end up with kind of like a bunch of files just in limbo, because that's what happened to me. My Procreate literally uninstalled from the bottom of the iPad. Like, this menu here. My Procreate on the other iPad, it just, when you click on it, it just does like a loading symbol, and then it says it says application cannot be installed. I don't know exactly what that means on any level. I don't know what it specifically means about that. Does it mean it just can no longer install it again? Does it mean it needs to install a different version? I don't even know what it means. But as I said, my files were linked to that app, and my iPad still says 50 gigabytes. It still says that's how, it still says you've got no storage free. So the files must be somewhere. But as I said, I've tried everything. I've tried iCloud. I've tried a bunch of stuff to try and get the files back, and it doesn't seem to be possible. So, I've mentally kind of said my goodbyes. If, worst case, I'm a worst case scenario kind of cat. So when something like this happens, I'm like, okay, cool. Worst case scenario, we can't get them back. Best case scenario, we get them back. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to kind of like hold out for them to come back. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely getting them back. It would be fantastic if I could get them back. But as I said, I'm really not sure if it's possible. But as I said, if anyone can help me, let me know. But I just kind of wanted to have that as the kind of title of the video, because I don't want people to kind of do that to their stuff, and then because it's just emotional, man. Especially if that was like your best stuff. For me, I kind of moved on from that iPad, and all the best stuff on it I kind of taken. There's a few things on there that was absolute good, like absolute gold, that I just like never like actually transferred anywhere else. But they're kind of things that I'm willing to kind of live without. They're not things that I'm like, oh, I'm so wounded about it. But still, there's probably thousands of images, or 1,000 kind of images on there that are mine that I don't have backed up anywhere. So it's kind of a strange one. But yeah, let's switch the topic. So I haven't made a video for 2 years. I don't have a very big following, so it's not like anyone will specifically notice, but I haven't posted for 2 years. There are a few people that I know that do watch my content that will be like, hey, he's back. But I've just been busy. I'm kind of a family man again. I've got a bunch of, in the 2 years I haven't posted, I've become a basketball coach. I've just been doing a lot of things. Like, I've been working a lot, and I've been doing a lot of freelance art on the side. I've been doing a lot of videography, and I've just been developing a lot of skills, and I've been too busy to really make YouTube videos. And the kids don't make it easier. Like my kids kind of always wanting attention doesn't make it easier, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's fantastic, but kind of like my attention's just been basically divided is what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to now, I've just bought a new kind of M2 MacBook Pro, so that's kind of me now stepping into the place of just like being more productive. So today, literally, I had this surge of energy. And I'm not really the type that likes to kind of like rely on motivation. I'm like the discipline type. I like to rely on discipline to kind of get me through. So my mind is kind of like, if I push myself into gear, I can just kind of like hit the ground running and kind of get cracking with everything that needs doing. So in my head, stuff like this, content creation for YouTube, for my art channel, because I have another channel where I do public content. In the city, Nottingham, where I'm from, I do like public content, talking to the public about things, just asking funny questions and stuff like that, just purely for entertainment. But this is my passion. Art has always been my passion over everything. Every time I try and like pretend or every time I try and say to myself in my own mind, like I have passions that match art, I'm quickly reminded that I don't. I love this with every fiber of myself. So for me, doing art, and even if people never catch on, if people never like the content, which I don't believe to be the case, I believe that people will catch on because I have faith in myself to kind of do things well. But even if nobody ever watched, I would still make these art videos because it's a chance for me to just vent while I'm doing art. It's a chance for me to have a conversation whilst I'm doing art. And then, even if one person sees it and one person comments and enjoys it, I've done my job. That's how I look at it. It served somebody, right? And I know this isn't the best illustration. I'm just kind of like doing the line work for kind of just a kind of, it's going to be like a quick kind of character design type piece. Because I'm working on like a personal like DC rewrite series where I kind of like rewrite DC comics as a one self-contained story. As one self-contained story where we kind of just explore everything through Superman's eyes, the whole story, and we look at like a different version of Superman, than what you would regularly have. He's still very much Superman, but he is older. I'll put that out there. He's older than he is in regular stuff. He is much more of a technical character now because I'm really trying to lean into the fact that he comes from a family of scientists, because that's not really ever really explored in the modern comics. In the Silver Age and stuff, Superman used to like be in the Fortress of Solitude, like doing science and doing a bunch of stuff that was like progressive on a high level. Not politically progressive, but progressive in terms of like progressive for the human race. Nowadays, he's very much just like some dude that like works at a newspaper, and every so often he does cool stuff. Like every so often you'll be reminded like, hey, this guy's Superman. But for the most part, that's not the case. If you can see here, I've just kind of like, I've deviated from my cape sketch. I'm going in a different direction. I just feel like it could be less on the left. So that's how I'm gonna do it. But yeah, this is just basically a character design for my rewrite. Literally, as I said, Superman's the main character, which he kind of is anyway in comics, if we're being honest. But yeah, Superman's the main character, and he is a different version. He acts very much like a wholesome Superman, though. He isn't in any way like a cold, calculating, brooding kind of character, but he is for the most part just more adept in everything that he does. Everything's more calculated because I'm coming at it from the perspective of even amongst superheroes, he is so much more powerful than most of the other heroes on the planet. That everything he does has to be calculated. Like if someone tries to kill him, like say another superhero tries to kill him, right? he has to really hold his punches to not accidentally kill them when they're trying to kill him. That's how powerful he is as a character, in terms of like how much power he's cultivated. And I want that to be a big part of like this story too. Like my Superman, the character himself, not even just my Superman, but Superman is a character that cultivates solar energy. He's basically like the ultimate solar battery, right? And I don't want to reveal too much, but as I said, I don't really care, because at some point I can't make money from it, so I'm gonna put it out as fan fiction anyway. But at some point, you got to realize that he starts to absorb more than the energy of just our sun, because he travels through space. So he's exposed to a bunch of energy, a bunch of different stars, and he just becomes progressively more powerful over time. But also, as well as just becoming progressively more powerful, what has to be understood is that he is ultimately, like, when you think about him as an individual character, he gets stronger anyway. If you look at Superman's statistics, it says he's always absorbing solar energy and he's becoming stronger anyway. So my version, it just leans into that more, because it's one through line story where you can see him progressively get stronger throughout the story. And you can see there's times when he can unleash more energy and tell certain characters like, yo, listen, I'm going to actually like fight properly this time. I'm going to have to use this much energy, that much energy. There's times when he has to expend a lot of energy. There's times when he has to he has to basically empty the tank. You know, there's times when he's against characters he can't defeat. You know, there are characters that are villains that are too powerful for him in my verse. And no, Doomsday is not one of them, in my opinion. Doomsday is not one of those characters that kind of like is too much for him. But Doomsday is a very formidable opponent, is another thing I'll say too. A lot of people really put a lot of stock on Doomsday. I'm kind of so-so with how I feel about Doomsday. Doomsday is okay, I guess. But Doomsday is not like to me, Doomsday is not a really impressive or a really cool character at all. Doomsday is an okay character that needs a lot of upgrades. And I'm still not quite there mentally on how I would tackle the Doomsday issue, because I really don't think the character's cool. But I've got a few ideas. So there you go. You get to see this kind of like this blank line art, kind of like it's not even finished, but this is what we've got right now. So yeah, this is the direction I'm going in. I'm getting like upset at myself saying because I was told like you shouldn't really say You shouldn't say on or anything if you're a native English speaker. It just shows that you're not prepared. But I like to do these streams and or these videos kind of like with no cuts, no edits, just off the cuff, because I like to have like a little bit more of an intimate conversation with the audience, with whoever's watching, which is the audience. But I like to have that instead of just like pretending that everything's one cut. But I've just done a lot of cuts to get rid of the ums and ahs. But hey, there's AI that can get rid of the ers now. So maybe I'll get rid of the ums and ahs with AI, right? Maybe I will. Now I'm thinking like Ed McGuinness was one of my favorite artists when I was younger. And Ed McGuinness used to do Superman with closed eyes. He drew him with open eyes sometimes, but then a lot of the times he drew him with closed eyes. And I just thought it was cool. I just thought it very much referenced the DC animated universe stuff. So I really, really liked it. But then also, I really like Ed McGuinness's artwork. Like, there's not many artists. There's him. There is the guy that does the Invincible artwork, the main guy. How have I forgot his name? This is not good. He's really, really good. It's like Ed McGuinness. It's like Joe Mad. And here's a funny take. A lot of people love Joe Madureira. And I'm a big Joe Madureira fan. But Joe Madureira's artwork is much more suitable for adventure, kind of like RPG, game type stuff than it is for comics. Ed McGuinness is like the comic book version of Joe Madureira. Like, I think obviously Joe Mad's got some of the coldest stuff in the 90s, but I think Ed McGuinness's stuff is just so like top notch in terms of like how he puts together, you know, comic book character proportions, how he puts together the muscles, you know, all that stuff is kind of, in my opinion, it's just unmatched. And I don't think Joe Mad has matched that. I think Joe Mad's done some cool stuff, but also I think Joe Mad has done cool stuff. And now I'm just going straight into like artists. Like if you don't know who Joe Madureira is, you probably should look him up. He did the stuff for Darksiders. It's a video game. He did Ultimates 3. He did some of the X-Men stuff in the 90s. That's when he actually got hired by Marvel. He does a bunch of stuff. He's really, really, really good in terms of like his pencil stuff is probably like when you see it in pencil form, it's hard to match that stuff. That stuff's ridiculous. But then when you see it in print, in comparison to like a Ed McGuinness, the Ed McGuinness stuff just comes across better because it has the more shapely black fills and a bunch of stuff, in my opinion, that's just a little bit more applicable to comics per se. I'm not trying to say Ed McGuinness is better, but I think his comic book work, in my opinion, his body of comic book work is better, in my opinion, than Joe Mad's. And I know I went on that crazy rant because sometimes when you talk things out loud, you're actually thinking. And I think that's the first time I've really had that kind of like conversation with myself about those two guys whose work I very much love. I'm still trying to think about the guy that draws the Invincible comics. How have I forgot his name? Like, but yeah, he's cold anyway. But his stuff looks kind of like Ed McGuinness's stuff. I'm not trying to say that was intentional. I don't know. They probably are about the same age, but his stuff strikes me a lot like Ed McGuinness's stuff so much. Oh man, how have I forgot his name? This is insane. But it's beautiful stuff. Like the TV show really doesn't hold a candle to it in terms of how it looks, but the TV show is fantastic. But there's not really a way to imitate like a penciler's style. Like Superman, Batman, Public Enemies tried to do it with Ed McGuinness's stuff, and it looks okay. But it looks dynamic for what it's worth, to be honest, in terms of like for an animated cartoon, it definitely stands out. But it's not Ed McGuinness's stuff, really, you know. And that's kind of like how I feel about like Invincible. Like it's not how I've really forgot his name. Like I'm bugging. Like I'm gonna hit Google. Like we're doing it, guys. We're doing it because I can't live like this. I can't live like this. Invincible. I've just remembered. Imagine. So I hit Google to type his name in. Okay, so I'm gonna type his. I'm gonna draw his name on screen. His name. Make a new layer. Is Ryan Otley. I think that's how you spell it. His name is Ryan Otley. And yeah, he's cold. He's cold. His pencils are cold. The stuff when when it's inked, when it's got like just black ink on it, cold. Like yeah, Ryan Otley's serious. Ryan Otley's a serious contender. But yeah, his stuff looks really good in ink as well, you know. And I think that's what it is. A lot of these guys, some guys' stuff looks better in ink than other guys' stuff. And it kind of like leads you to a conclusion that, okay, he's the better artist. But it's not really that simple. And it's a hard conversation to have anyway, because styles make fights, you know. Some books would look way better with a Joe Mad. Some books would look way better with a Ed McGuinness. It's just for me, the type of books I like to read would look better with Ed McGuinness if he was the guy. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't like those colorists and stuff he has at Marvel, though, in comparison to when he was at DC and he had Dexter Vines doing the inking. But I think Vines still does the inking at Marvel, but it's the colorist I don't like. I don't like the colors. The colors on the Superman, Batman, Public Enemies stuff was amazing. I can't remember who even did that. That stuff was amazing. And it's interesting, like, because I'm a person who does, if I'm gonna do a comic, which I'm doing very soon, I would be doing the penciling, the inking, and the coloring. So it's interesting when like you hear when you look at like somebody's work with a different colorist, and you're like, that's taken away from the work. Like that's how I feel about it. I'm like, yo, his colors are taken away from what this brother can do. And I know it's weird to say it, but that's how it feels. It's like, yo, your colors aren't helping. Like this, your colors should be helping. Just gonna quickly add this kind of like this forward like triangle shape to Superman's kind of like arm brace thing. Okay, another one of these. In fact, nah, you know what? I'm gonna come back on that arm. I'm gonna come back one. So little decisions. We're kind of character designing on the fly as well, because I didn't really do that much character design when I was doing the sketch. But I just kind of wanted to have an idea out fast. I'm not really satisfied with this design. I think I might get rid of these kind of like leg pieces and just have like blue leg. I'm not sure. That's what it is. It's trying to figure out like where do we put the other colors, you know, the how do we describe those, you know? That's what I'm trying to capture. But yeah, while we're here, I might as well chat about Superman a little bit. So for me, Superman is, if you've read kind of like John Byrne's run on Superman and stuff like that, Superman is without a doubt one of the coldest comic book characters that's ever existed. And people that haven't read Superman will say things like Superman's boring, and just read the stories. Just stop all that secondhand opinion nonsense and read the stories, you know. Or I know a bunch of people don't read Superman and they think they know stuff about the character and they know this and that. And Superman is there's so much crazy stuff that happens in a Superman book that it's like, it's hard to even tell people. It's like when you don't know about One Piece, right? It's like when you're a non-One Piece fan and you get into One Piece, right? It's One Piece is different. So when you get into it, it takes you to a different place because you weren't used to that place, you know? Ah, that looks like a Z. Look at me. Oh, let's do an S. It just looks like he's Zod. It just looks like he's Zod. See, sometimes you gotta flip the canvas, man. Sometimes if you flip the canvas, you can see things for what they are, you know? And then another thing, like, I messed up here because you see this whole S, like, this is easy to amend, but I should have done the S on another layer. Because then I don't have to worry about the S. Now I've got to draw around it, like, and try and be clean like some weird guy. Whereas if it was on a different layer, I wouldn't have to worry about it at all. I just adjust it accordingly. So I'm not being too careful because, as I said, this is just a character design. Like, this is not an illustration. This is nothing super serious. This is a character design. So what I'll do though now that S isn't there, I can kind of go in with that chest and I can just add some striations and stuff. Yeah, I spent today, like, if you guys know who Francis Manapul is, if you don't, get to know. My son was ill today, and I just bought this new MacBook, so I was installing some software and stuff on my MacBook, like all my Adobe suite and all the things that need to be on there for me to start kind of getting to work pretty much tomorrow. And I was watching a bunch of Francis Manapul videos. If you don't know who he is, as I said, he works for DC. He worked on The Flash for a while, done a bunch of covers for Justice League. He's done a bunch of just great work, and he's got a very interesting workflow. He uses Photoshop for all his top tier stuff. He used to use gouache and watercolor for some of the Flash stuff back in the day. And he has a very specific way of working in Photoshop, which involves dissolve layers, which is an interesting thing because not that many people use the dissolve function. And a lot of apps don't have it. Like this app, Procreate, doesn't have dissolve. And what dissolve does is it creates a stippling effect with black fills. So he uses that a lot. And as I said, it's interesting because I haven't seen many people kind of utilize that technique. It's just not something people do. So to see him do it is a crazy kind of like development, and he's used it to a point where it's probably been a massive part of a lot of his process for years, and he's pretty much one of the only guys I know that uses that function. Most people, if you ask them what a dissolve layer does, they probably don't even know. And I didn't know until I seen him doing it. I said, okay, so a dissolve layer literally is just stippling without having to make a custom brush. So yeah, there's interesting kind of parts of the process. So now we've got him here, and now we can do the S, right? So what I like to do is I'm gonna make I'll just make a normal layer, but I'll drop it to 59%, 60%. And I'll get a red color. And I think what I'll try and do is just do it, like just make the S. But what I'm going for is like a big S that goes over his whole chest kind of thing. I'm not going for a regular sized S by any regard. I'm going for like a big S. But my idea was to have like a big kind of like super money S, you know? And then maybe like elements of that kind of shield kind of being kind of designed in. So it's kind of more whole outfit than just kind of like on his chest. But I do think that looks pretty cool. And as I said, these are just designs. So for me, I can go with like the first design and be okay with it. Because it's not that serious. I'm just going to put the border around the S because I don't want the other border, the line border, to have a border on it. I just want the S to be separated so you can see that the S is an S. Okay, so there we go. We can have that. We can duplicate that. So here's a trick. Go to curves. In fact, not even curves. We hit hue saturation. We hit saturation to 0. And go curves. So now we just have an S. So we can see it in black and white. We've got both layers, remember. But we can see it in black and white, okay? So now, how long have we been talking? Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. It's been 34 minutes. Okay, guys, look. I'm going to be real. It's late in the UK. I'm probably going to adjourn this. I'm going to not finish this painting or this character design until the next time kind of like we are recording. So I'm going to leave this unfinished until that time, and then I'll record some more and I'll upload both of them, and then we'll kind of be back to regular weekly videos as we should be. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, the video was all about the fact that I lost basically, hundreds of pieces because I overfilled my Procreate and I had too much stuff going on my iPad, and the app uninstalled itself. So just don't do that, okay? Try and make sure you're always offloading your Procreate files to a Dropbox or something like that. You know, try and make the iCloud thing work. I don't exactly know what I did wrong, but make all of that stuff happen so you don't lose all your artwork. That's all I can say. That was the crux of this video. Superman is the greatest. Peace. I did not mean to do that.